Welcome to Everyday Tech Explained. AI. Oh my gosh, AI. It's everywhere you look these days, it seems like. It's anyone's talking about, all these buzzwords and
It really is.
acronyms. It's like suddenly everyone's speaking a different language.
Feels that way, right? And it's tough to keep up with all the new terms, all these new concepts,
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're doing a deep dive today, inspired by this CNET article. It's called ChatGPT Glossary. 49 AI terms everyone should know.
Oh, wow.
49.
Yeah.
And hey, if you're liking this deep dive, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us out. But let's get back to this AI thing. I mean, we're talking potentially trillions of dollars in economic impact every year. This isn't just about, sounding smart at parties.
No.
This is about understanding.
It really is.
A force that's reshaping
the world.
The world as we speak, yeah.
Absolutely. The changes are happening so fast, so I think getting a handle on the language of AI is so important.
So where do we even begin? I mean, where do we even start with this whole glossary?
Yeah, well, let's start with the basics. Artificial intelligence. AI, as everyone's calling it.
Right, AI.
Essentially, it's the idea of using tech to simulate human intelligence.
Okay, so it's like...
But it's not just robots, right? It's also software.
Oh, interesting.
So think about like the algorithms behind your social media feeds or those chatbots. They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, the chatbots, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. So it's really software that can learn and adapt.
Right.
Is that where machine learning comes in? Because I feel like I keep hearing...
You are, and you're hearing it more and more for good reason.
More and more these days. Okay.
Right? Yeah, machine learning, or ML, it's a crucial part of AI where computers learn from data.
Okay.
But they do it without needing explicit instructions, like step by step.
Oh, so they don't need us to hold their hand through the process.
Not anymore. It's how those algorithms, get better at tasks over time.
So they're like figuring things out on their own, based on all this data they're given.
Imagine you're teaching a computer to identify different types of flowers. You wouldn't program in all rules, right?
Right.
You'd show it tons of pictures and let it figure out those patterns all on its own.
So it's learning by example. That's
the power of machine learning.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So then what is deep learning? Because I feel like I hear that term and I'm like...
Yeah, deep learning, that's like...
I don't even know where to begin.
Machine learning on steroids. It uses these complex neural networks, and they're inspired by the human brain, to find even more subtle patterns in data.
So it's
giving the machine a more powerful brain to work with, so it can handle these more complex tasks.
Okay, so we've got AI, we've got machine learning, and now we have deep learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see how the pieces fit together. But then you have all this talk about narrow AI, AGI.
Right.
What are those different types of AI?
They are. Think of narrow or weak AI as the AI we mostly have today.
Okay.
It's great at specific tasks, but it's not about machines being able to learn anything like a human. A perfect example is a chess playing program. Amazing at chess, can beat grandmasters.
Right.
But it can't write a novel or compose a symphony.
Because like a specialist.
Exactly.
Like really good at one thing.
Exactly.
But not capable of like general intelligence.
And that's where the concept of AGI comes in.
Okay.
Artificial general intelligence. That's the idea of machines that have human-like intelligence across the board.
So like a machine that can do it all.
Exactly. Being able to learn and solve problems in any domain.
Wow.
Still a future concept.
Oh, okay. So we're not quite there yet.
But it's a huge part of the conversation about the potential and also the risks of AI.
Okay, so we're not going to get into the Terminator scenario today.
Not today.
Okay, so before we get into any of the risks or anything like that, let's talk about the AI that's already blowing our minds.
Yeah.
Generative AI. It feels like that's what's really capturing people's imagination right now.
It is. It's definitely the hot topic, generative AI. It's all about AI creating content. Whether it's text, images, music, even code, we're seeing some really mind-blowing examples.
Like ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, yes.
Like it seems like it's everywhere I look these days. It's like everyone's it's using it to write poems and screenplays. And
it's become so popular, it's almost mainstream now.
even code.
Exactly. And what about those other tools like Google Gemini and Microsoft Copilot?
Those are popping up everywhere, too.
They're popping up everywhere. Those are all fantastic examples of generative AI in action.
Yeah. And remember that the article even mentioned Midjourney.
Midjourney.
This AI can make incredibly realistic images from just like simple text descriptions.
I know. It's incredible what these tools can do.
It's wild. So let's say I wanted to use one of these generative AI tools. I would give it a prompt, right?
Precisely. The prompt is your instruction.
Okay, so like if I wanted a poem about a skateboarding dog, that would be my prompt.
It tells the AI what you want to create. And here's the thing. The quality of the output really depends on how well you craft that prompt. It's becoming an art form in itself.
Oh, wow. So prompt writing
engineering
is a skill for the future.
Exactly.
Noted. Okay. But what happens when the AI gets it wrong?
Yes.
You know, I've heard about this thing called hallucination.
Right.
And that sounds kind of creepy.
Hallucination is when the AI gives you an answer that sounds very confident but is totally wrong.
Oh.
Like, the article gave this great example. You ask it, when did Da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa?
Oh, yeah.
And it might confidently tell you 1815, which is way off.
Whoa. That is creepy. Because it was it's a good reminder that AI isn't perfect.
Exactly.
And we can't always trust what it tells us.
And it highlights another very crucial concept, bias.
Okay, so how does bias?
AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. So if that data contains bias, whether it's racism, sexism, or any kind of prejudice, the AI will reflect that.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the ethics of how we use it.
AI ethics is a huge and growing field, and it's going to be even more important as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
Yeah. We need to make sure that we're being responsible. Okay, so this is getting pretty deep pretty fast.
It is.
And we've only just scratched the surface of this glossary.
I know.
I'm really curious to learn more about some of these other terms like autonomous agents. That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? Usually we think of autonomous agents as self-driving cars, but the article mentions something really fascinating. Researchers at Stanford, they've shown that these agents, they can actually develop their own cultures and traditions.
What?
Imagine AI robots creating their own little societies.
That's both amazing and a little unnerving. It feels like we're stepping into the realm of science fiction here.
It really does. It raises some interesting questions about the future of AI. And speaking of unnerving, there's another term from the article I think you'll find fascinating. Paperclips.
Paperclips. What do paperclips have to do with AI taking over the world?
Well, it's actually a thought experiment called the Paperclip Maximizer.
Okay.
And it imagines an AI that's programmed with this very simple goal: make as many paperclips as possible.
Okay, I'm not seeing the problem yet.
Okay, so the problem is that in its pursuit of this goal, the AI might end up dismantling everything in its path. Cars, buildings, even humans, to turn them all into paperclips.
What? No.
Yeah, it shows how even a seemingly harmless goal, if it's taken to the extreme by a super intelligent AI, could have these disastrous unintended consequences.
Whoa. That is both brilliant and terrifying. So it's like a cautionary tale about thinking carefully about the goals we set for AI and making sure that they align with human values. We don't want to accidentally unleash a paperclip-obsessed AI.
No paperclip apocalypse.
No paperclip apocalypse, yeah.
And it brings us right back to the importance of AI safety. Thinking about those long-term impacts of AI and how to make sure it remains beneficial to humanity.
This is heavy stuff. We've covered a lot of ground already, but it feels like we're just getting started.
Yeah. There's so much more to explore in this world of AI. Hopefully we've given you a good foundation so you can understand the language and some of these key concepts.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm starting to get it. But, there are a few more terms in this glossary that I'm curious about.
Okay.
Like Turing test.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've heard that before, but it's not quite.
Turing test.
Yeah.
It's a classic in the world of AI, named after Alan Turing, this brilliant mathematician and computer scientist.
Okay.
Basically, it's a test to see if a machine can exhibit intelligent behavior that is indistinguishable from a human.
So if you're having a conversation with a computer and you can't tell it's not a human,
exactly,
it passes the Turing test.
It passes the Turing test. It's a benchmark that has been a goal of AI researchers for decades now.
Wow.
And it really makes you think about like what it means for a machine to be intelligent, right?
Right. Yeah, that is a good question. So if we're talking about AI understanding human language,
yes,
we have to talk about natural language processing,
yeah,
NLP.
Absolutely.
That just seems like a fundamental piece of this whole puzzle.
It is. NLP is all about allowing computers to understand, to interpret, and even to generate human language.
Okay.
And it's what's behind those chatbots we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
as well as things like voice assistants and language translation tools.
It's amazing to think how far we've come with that. Like,
I know.
I remember when, like the voice assistants could barely understand a simple command.
Yeah.
Now they can like have full-blown conversations.
I know. The progress has been remarkable. And it's really all thanks to these advances in machine learning and deep learning that let these systems learn from just massive amounts of text data and just keep getting better and better.
That's incredible. So speaking of data, the article mentions training data quite a bit.
Yes.
What exactly is that and why is it so important? It sounds like.
Yeah, training data is like...
It's like a key ingredient in all this.
The fuel that powers AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's these huge data sets of text or images or code or any kind of information that AI models are trained on. And the quality and diversity of that data, it's absolutely crucial because it determines how well the AI learns and how well it performs its task.
So, like, if you train an AI model on a data set of only pictures of cats,
exactly,
it's going to be really good at recognizing cats.
It'll know cats.
But not so good at recognizing, like...
Not so much the dogs and birds.
Dogs or birds or anything else.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to have diverse and representative training data.
Okay.
That helps to avoid bias and ensure that the AI can generalize its learning to new and unseen situations.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how does the AI actually learn from all this data? I'm still a little bit fuzzy on those, like, neural networks that we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do those actually work?
Okay, so think of neural networks as these complex structures that are kind of inspired by the human brain.
Okay.
And they consist of these interconnected nodes or neurons that process and transmit information. And so by adjusting the connections between these neurons, the AI can actually learn to recognize patterns in that training data.
So it's like the AI is building its own internal map of how the world works based on all this data that we're giving it.
That is a great way to put it. And the more data it gets, the more detailed and accurate that map becomes. But even with tons of data, AI models can still make mistakes, right? Like, remember that whole hallucination thing we were talking about?
Yeah, the whole AI confidently giving wrong answers.
Right. Well, there's another term from the glossary that relates to this, overfitting. And that's when an AI model learns the training data too well. It gets so focused on those specific examples in the data that it can't generalize to new unseen examples. It's like a student who memorizes all the answers for a test but doesn't actually understand the concepts.
So they might ace that one test.
Exactly.
But they won't be able to apply that knowledge in the real world.
Exactly. Overfitting is a common problem in AI, and researchers are constantly developing techniques to avoid it and make sure those AI models can generalize their learning effectively. We want AI that can think critically, not just parrot back what it's been fed.
Exactly. Yeah. This is all so fascinating, but I have to admit, my brain is starting to feel a little full.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in.
It feels like we need a glossary to understand the glossary.
It's true, but, the goal isn't to become an AI expert overnight. It's about just gaining a basic understanding of these concepts and how they're shaping the world around us.
That's true, yeah. And I definitely feel like I'm making progress. But before we wrap up, there's one more term in the article that I'm curious about. Transformer models. What are those, and why are they so important? They sound pretty powerful.
They are powerful. Transformer models are a type of neural network architecture that have really revolutionized natural language processing. They're especially good at understanding the context of language, which is so crucial for tasks like translation or text generation.
So, like, instead of just looking at individual words, they can understand the relationships between words in a sentence and even across multiple sentences.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
It is. It's what allows them to kind of capture the nuances and subtleties of human language in a way that previous models just couldn't.
So it sounds like transformer models are a big part of the reason why AI is advancing so rapidly these days.
They definitely are, and they're being used in all sorts of applications, from those chatbots we were talking about to search engines, even to scientific research.
Wow. This is all so mind-blowing. It feels like we've covered so much already, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? There's always more to learn when it comes to AI, but hopefully this deep dive has given you a solid foundation to understand the language of AI and why it matters.
Yeah, it really has. With all this talk about AI writing poems and creating art and even composing music, it makes me wonder, what happens to human creativity in a world where AI can do all of this? Does this mean, like, artists and writers and musicians, are they all going to be out of a job?
That's a question that a lot of people are asking, and it's an important one.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial to remember that AI is a tool. Just like a paintbrush doesn't replace a painter, AI doesn't replace human creativity. In fact, I think it can actually enhance it.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So instead of fearing AI as like this threat to creativity, we should see it as a collaborator, like a new kind of creative partner.
AI can help us generate ideas, explore new possibilities, even push the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Wow.
It can help us overcome creative blocks and spark new inspiration. It's a tool that can amplify our creativity, not replace it.
Okay, I like that perspective.
Yeah.
It's definitely less scary than the whole robots taking over the world scenario.
For sure.
But speaking of things that sound a bit scary, the article mentions something called stochastic parrot. Does that have anything to do with, like, robots learning to mimic bird calls? Because that would be both amazing and slightly terrifying.
Not quite. Stochastic parrot is an analogy that's used to describe how these large language models like ChatGPT work.
Okay.
It suggests that even though these models can generate this incredibly human-like text, they don't actually understand the meaning behind the words they're using.
So even though it sounds like they're having this deep conversation or writing a profound poem,
right,
they're really just spitting out words based on, like, patterns they've learned.
Yeah, it's like a parrot mimicking human speech, but without truly understanding it.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel a little bit better.
But it also raises some interesting questions, like, if AI can generate text that's indistinguishable from human writing,
yes,
how do we know what's real anymore?
Right.
Like, how do we know if we're reading something written by a person or generated by a machine?
Yeah, that's a huge question.
Yeah.
And it really gets at the heart of some of the ethical and societal challenges we face with AI.
Okay.
As these technologies get more and more sophisticated, it's going to become harder and harder to tell what's real and what's been created by a machine.
It's a bit unsettling, to be honest. It feels like we're entering this world where you can't trust anything you see or hear online.
And that's a pretty fundamental shift.
It is a big shift, and that's why it's so important to develop those critical thinking skills and media literacy, now more than ever.
Yeah.
We need to be able to evaluate information and sources really carefully, to question what we see and hear, and be aware of the potential for AI-generated content.
This has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for walking us through all this. I feel like I've learned so much.
My pleasure.
But before we wrap up, I have one final question for you. With all these incredible advancements in AI, where do you see things heading in the future? What's your, like, big picture prediction?
It's really hard to say for sure what the future holds, but one thing is clear. AI is going to continue to play an increasingly important role in our lives.
Yeah.
We're going to see it integrated into more and more products and services, and it's going to continue to transform the way we work, the way we learn, and the way we interact with the world.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about all the possibilities. But knowledge is power, right?
Oh.
The more we understand these technologies,
Absolutely.
the better equipped we'll be to navigate the future.
I totally agree. And I believe that if we approach AI with a thoughtful and ethical mindset, we can really harness its power to create a better future for everyone.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI.
It was my pleasure.
Well, that was Everyday Tech Explained. AI is a hot topic right now, and it seems like there are new developments every day. What do you think about all these new AI programs and devices? Are you in the market for one? Be sure to let us know in the comments. And please, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode of Everyday Tech Explained.